Hey, welcome back to Drummer Daily. Once again, my name is Daniel. Kind of sound like I forgot my name for a second. Well, we are in the middle of, I don't even know how long it's been now, this isolation thing that we're all doing. It feels like it's day 95. I don't know how long it's been. It's been a couple of weeks. But it's the kind of thing that, at least for people like me, it makes me start to think that maybe I've forgotten my name. Anyway, I'm so happy you're here. My name's Daniel, aka the Drum Coach, and this is Drummer Daily, a daily companion for you in your drumming life. So, interestingly, I've been in my own way trying to take advantage. I have to practice what I preach, and one thing I've been saying as many places as I can is during all this isolation time, and being forced to work from home or be home or whatever that means. There's a lot of negative things that go along with it, but I'm trying my best to find some positive opportunities in all of it. I think I've even mentioned that here on the podcast a few times. So one thing that I've done along the lines of taking advantage of the opportunity this time presents is I'm trying to do a little bit more kind of circling back and doing some more reading. One important thing to me outside of drumming is, business development, self-development, specifically marketing, which is part of the reason why I have so many podcast episodes and everything like that. I do love sharing and helping the drumming community and drummers like you. That's why I do this podcast for free. But also it is part of a greater marketing strategy that I like to have a small side business that I do all of this drumming stuff inside of. And, I don't think it's any secret that I have all that stuff. I have things for sale, things like that from time to time. And that's just part of my side business. So the marketing side of things, the business development side of things is something that I like to. It's something I enjoy, but it's something that I know there's value in it for me outside of just geeking out about something that I like. And so I've been trying to take advantage of this time to do more reading, more education, kind of keeping my skills sharp, things like that. And so I am one of these sick people that currently I'm reading 3 different business focused books all at the same time. So I've got one book on my Kindle that I'm reading. I've got one audiobook in Audible that I'm listening to. And then I've got another audiobook in the Books app on my computer that I'm listening to when I'm at my computer. So I've got 3 different books that I'm reading all at the same time. And they're all about different things. But interestingly, it's not a coincidence because this is something that we in business take for granted sometimes, but it's something that I think really equates to drumming, and not just professional drumming, but drumming at the whole, or whatever, however you want to say that. And that is all 3 books at the point that I'm different amounts through each book, but it's interesting that all 3 of them at the same point, within like a day or so of where I got in each of them, mentioned understanding what your audience wants and then giving it to them. And basically the idea is, what I've kind of combined and gleaned from that is, in business, you should find a way to be dedicated to a certain group of people and then provide them what they want or what they need. And that's certainly what I do here with drummers, like with you. I don't necessarily have one thing that I think that I want to give you and then try to convince you that you need to have the thing that I'm trying to present to you, or the one kind of angle of education or sharing my story or guidance or whatever you want to call it. I don't pre-decide what I'm going to try to force you to listen to and then try to convince you to listen to it. I spend a lot of time reading your emails, getting messages from you on social media, things like that. And that's why I always ask you too about what do you want to hear on this podcast? Because I'm dedicated to you, and then I go out of my way to provide you whatever you were asking for, saying that you need or you want. But a lot of times as drummers, we don't take that approach in what we're playing. We actually work so much on what we want to do, how we want to play drums, the things that we like doing. We develop our playing a certain way without really anybody else in mind. And at first, it's probably because we all just like sitting in our rooms playing drums, or wherever we are playing drums. We just enjoy playing. And so we spend a lot of time developing ourselves as musicians for ourselves without ever thinking about anybody else, because we don't need to. But then at a certain point, we decide, I want to be in a band, or I want to get hired, or whatever that is. I need to interact. I need my drumming now to relate to other people. And then what we end up doing is we take what we've already developed. We take our drumming. We will for this metaphor, let's say our drumming is a product, just like let's say the product we would equate this to is like a car washing sponge. Like, what I do is I go home and I develop this amazing car wash sponge that I think is great, and then I try to go convince people who own cars to buy my sponge, and they say, well, it doesn't really work for my car because I don't want a sponge like that. I want a sponge that has this or that. And you say, no, I'm not going to give you that. I know that you want that, and that would be great for your car, but let me convince you why the thing that I already made is actually what you want. And they keep saying, no, that you don't understand me as well as I hope you did. I don't want the thing you're trying to give me. I'm telling you what I want. Give me that, and I'll buy it. As drummers, that's a lot of times what we've done. We've already developed our product as a drummer, and then we try to go out into the world and shoehorn our unmovable, inflexible identity of what we do as drummers into somebody else's musical situation. And we think of doing that as that's what getting gigs is. That's what developing a following on social media is, or whatever it is. I'm going to do these things, and then I'm going to either, at best, people better just like what I've got, and hopefully someone will stumble across me that just magically happens to like exactly what I already do, or I'm going to put this out there. I'm this certain kind of drummer, and then I'm going to try to convince a country artist or a hip hop artist or whatever that my drumming is what they need. But that's not what other musicians want, and that's not the professional drummers that I know. That's not how they're getting gigs. The way that they're getting gigs is they are dedicated to a group of people, just like I talked about what I do with this podcast. I'm dedicated to you, the drummer who wants to be a professional, and I ask you, what do you need to help you with that? In the same way, the drummers that I know that are making a living at playing drums are going to other musicians, or going to these artists or this community of artists and looking at, if you can't get a direct answer, you're looking and understanding, asking the question, what do these people need? And then how can I provide it as a drummer? And that's a very different question. That might end up with a very different result. It is not cheapening the work that you've put into your drumming and the development that you've put in, because everything that you've learned how to do as a drummer is still a skill that you can use. All the basic core foundational techniques that you've gotten to where they are now are still going to be used when you serve another musician or another artist or a producer or whoever it is. But I see so many comments. In fact, most of the people, when I run ads for my stuff on Facebook, for example, most of the negative comments that I get from people are people saying you shouldn't have to compromise on who you are as a drummer to get gigs. If I have to compromise on what I am or what I do, then I don't need the gig anyway. And my response to that is, well, that's fine. Like if you want to say I'm not going to compromise, which in their minds means changing anything about their drumming to suit the musical situation of the person who writes the checks or who has the money, then that's you saying that you expect that person to be the one that's flexible. Because there is a market full of people, believe it or not, there really is still people who are willing to pay for drummers who meet the need that they already have decided they have. And if you know anything about economics or took a class in high school or whatever, one of the core principles is whoever has the money, they make the decisions. And so in a situation where there's 1,000 drummers who really want to play for an artist, and the artist has the money and is looking for a drummer, they're not going to pay the one who can convince them that what they are already playing is the right thing for their music. They're going to pay the person who is willing to play exactly what they want. And especially if they're already telling you what they want, why can't you give it to them? So you've got to be more flexible in what you're offering, but also you've got to stop being so dedicated to the craft of your drumming that you completely lose the dedication to the people that you're drumming for. And that's really what I want you to get from today's episode is start looking at the people who are paying musicians, even if if you're not on their radar and you don't think that you have a chance of getting their attention and getting paid by them. Look at what they're doing, look at what they might be looking for, and then start trying to do those things. If you want to be a drummer in the country music industry, don't go in with your heavy metal style of drumming and then say, I have this dream of some country artist who wants a heavy metal drummer to stumble across me and hire me. Why don't you start playing stuff on social media that you playing the right way with country music in the way that country artists typically want drummers to play. They typically have drummers playing. A good way of figuring stuff out like that is listen to the albums that they recorded. Chances are, especially the bigger artists, they got the drummer to play exactly what they wanted the drummer to play. And so you can kind of start to listen to a lot of different stuff across many different genres or across the same genre and start figuring out, okay, that's the kind of stuff that the artists who write the checks are having their drummers. That's the kind of way they're having their drummers play. And to start developing those skills, whatever those are. And then you can start serving that community of artists the same way the other drummers who are getting paid are. And they'll actually start paying attention to you. But you cannot approach this with the idea of, this is what I'm going to play. Let me try to convince somebody else that they need what I already do. Never works that way. I've never gone to a gig. I've never gotten a paid gig where I played exactly what I imagined I was going to play. I always end up compromising on my idea versus the artist's idea. And typically, the more they end up paying, the more I compromise. And it's not because they're paying me more that I'm more willing to compromise. It's because the people who pay more typically have been more successful. And as a result, they have a more specific idea about what they want, and they're looking for someone who is willing to provide it. So I find myself in situations that require me to compromise more because they're paying more, not me being willing to compromise is related to how much they're paying. I want to make sure that's clear. So anyway, find ways to serve an audience and stop worrying so much about developing this exact fingerprint of yourself to the point at which no one will understand what you're doing and will be willing to play with you. That goes for whether you want to be a paid drummer, whether you just want to be in a band, or you just want to sit with a songwriter and just go along and have some fun at gigs on the weekend. You got to start serving the people, not your own ambitions for what you think you should be as a drummer. All right. Thanks so much for joining me today on Drummer Daily. Hope you're hanging in there. I am. And I'd love to hear from you. Send me an email, daniel@danielhadaway.com, and let me know what you think about the show or what you'd like to hear, and we'll try to work it into a future episode. All right. Thanks for joining me on Drummer Daily. Bye for now.